What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to the All Around. I'm your gracious host, Dr. Anthony. Please tune in on Mondays at 6 p.m. for your entertainment purposes. We will hit current topics, old topics, and everything else in between. Be there or be square. Deuces, my loves. Hi, welcome to another great episode of the All Around. I am your gracious host, Dr. Anthony, and we have some hot topics that we are going to be discussing tonight. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and bring out my producer, Mark Lee, so we can go ahead and jump the gun and get started and hop on to these topics. How are you today, Mark?
I'm doing good. Actually, I had the pleasure of actually doing something that you do regularly, but the network Pod TV was kind enough to let me get on out of town and everything like that. So I wish I had been at the Super Bowl because I am a Gil Scott Heron fan, and I know that Kendrick Lamar made a salute to Gil Scott Heron by saying the revolution will be televised, and definitely made a dig at the president who was in attendance and all along those lines. But I was actually in Miami at a television programming conference. So I was down there, not that far from downtown, actually in the downtown area, not that far from South Beach. So I got a little bit of water, which I got a little bit more of the tan and all along those lines. But I did enjoy the fine comforts of Miami, and definitely need to make a return trip because I was enjoying that water, enjoying seeing the water, enjoying some of the fine food, including some seafood and all along those lines. So I enjoyed being down there, and it just taught me something that I've been saying for a while because I've been threatening that I was going to come up there and visit you, but I definitely got to get some more traveling out in 2025. So that's one of my New Year's resolutions that has already happened because I've been on one trip and now I got to go on some more because I enjoyed being in Miami. Need to make a return trip to Miami and have got DC, New York, and other places on my sites as well. But don't be surprised if you don't get a knock on the door or a call. I'm in your backyard.
Well, that's, you're always welcome. I have a spare room downstairs and things like that I'm getting ready to actually turn into Airbnb. But you're always welcome anytime you're in the area, come and cop a swat in my house and hang out and things like that or whatever. But, we have some hot topics that we, want to jump right into, and one being the Super Bowl.
Yep, the Super Bowl was great. Like I said, I love.
But although I didn't watch the Super Bowl, yes, although I did not watch the Super Bowl, I still was rooting for Jalen Hurts to win, and I'm so glad that he was able to win. And I think what worked in his favor was when the controversy came out about the referees making the wrong calls for the Washington Commanders and how some referees were cheating to make sure that certain teams got advanced and got where they are and things like that or whatever. So I think that gave them a like that. But congratulations to the Eagles and things like that. Your Super Bowl win. We're super proud of you, Jalen Hurts, and continue to do what you do. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about this Kendrick Lamar concert that he put on at the Super Bowl. That was one of the most amazing shows that has ever come through the Super Bowl. And I've been seeing a lot of people on social media saying that they did not like his show. It was just not there. If you in the show, then the show was not there for you. White people, sorry, the show was not there for you. This was not a show that was for, inclusivity and things like that. This show spoke directly to Black America, starting with Samuel Jackson and, Uncle Sam and things like that, going into the Squid Games, going into, each little thing, and hear him teasing about, not like us. So the show to me was an amazing show with a lot of symmetry, a lot of symbolism. Social media has been saying that, just random folks on social media, oh, they didn't like the show. It was boring. But sweetheart, you're one of the ones that Harriet Tubman would have killed or left behind. You're not, like he said, you're not like us. The show was meant for, for the culture, for the people, for the woke, for the down people and things like that. And those who got it, got it. Those who didn't, sorry, it just went over your head. You know what I'm saying? So, that was the blackest Super Bowl ever. And when I tell you, we have History Month, Black Super Bowl, it couldn't get any blacker. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, we are so pleased over here. We are so down over here, and we are so amazed for the culture. And that's why Drake is concerned. This is another prime example why Drake is not, you know, down for the culture and things like that or whatever. You want to be in the culture, but you're not a part of the culture. You have to understand that. You know, he's pulling little shots about, you know, he's gonna sue if, you know, Kendrick performed the song. But you started it by talking about his wife and his children. So he amped it up a level and went into your background to go dig up some things. And not only did Kendrick dig up some things, but fans dug up some things. And a lot of the things like the whole, you know, famous, the infamous A minor came from a fan. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it's not just Kendrick Lamar putting things out there. Fans are actually putting things out there. So, you know, when you come for the culture, you have to be ready for the culture. You know.
Yep.
No doubt. In the South, we have this thing what we call playing the dozens.
Mm-hmm. Playing
the dozens. So if you don't know what the dozens are, I'm about to explain what the dozens are. So when you play the dozens, that means, because in DC they call it joning. You know what I'm saying? But we're not joning. Because playing the dozens mean that you're talking about everybody. You're talking about the grandmammy, the grandpappy, the, you know, the cousins, the aunties, the uncles, the retarded ones, the slow ones, everybody in the family. There's nothing off limits. Kendrick, you know, went after Drake and said that, you know, he's a certified pedophile and things like that. Nothing was off limits. He, you know, Drake started it with talking about his family, his wife, and things like that, or whatever, his children. So Kendrick just finished it off. So when we play the dozens in the South, nothing is off limits. We go for the jugular, and that is exactly what Kendrick did. He went for the jugular, and Drake played, you know, and he didn't think that it was going to go as far as it went or whatever. But Kendrick, he cemented it. You know, he A around his neck, you know, A minor meaning, you know, a small child, a young woman, or whatever, in symbolic terms, A minor, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, the message was loud and clear. And for those who did not get the message and those who did not understand, y'all missed the message. So I'm just sorry, you know, but the message was loud and clear and the symbolism was there. And not only did he, you know, go after Drake, he talked about America and how America wants us to play games and America don't want us to be black and don't want us to be bombed, you know, Philadelphia. America, you know, tore up Black Wall Street. America bombed and killed people in Rosewood. So we have a long history of America going against his black residents and things like that. And so in Kendrick Lamar's performance at the Super Bowl, you know, he highlighted how America wants us to be, you know, what they perceive us to be as Americans. They don't want us to be a part of the culture. They don't want us to be down with, you know, blacks and act black and things like that.
No doubt about that.
They want us to act and stuff like that. So, you know, it's real interesting. And I was going to say, Mark, it's real interesting to see how many black people are just out there saying, oh, his show was boring. He, you know, nobody wanted to hear a lesson. But, you know, so the only thing that y'all want is somebody shaking their ass and, you know, doing this. Because, you know, my thing is, you know, when you're doing something, you need to have some substance. And he has substance behind his words and what he was saying. And so, you know, y'all need to really listen to get the message to understand. So that you can understand, you know, what you have to do so that you can understand the assignment. Now, the one that went to polls on the November 5th, part of the 92% and part of the 84%, we didn't miss the message. We understood the assignment. We understood what he was saying. We understood the symbolism of Samuel Jackson. We understood the symbolism of Serena Williams, you know, where they have to say that, you know, we have to protect black women and things like that. We understood all that. But it's the people who are saying that it was boring, and those people are the ones who are saying, you know, that they didn't get it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This was strictly about black people, the culture, and, you know, being down with us and things like that. Mark?
Well, a couple of things. One, I agree with you because the Django references were definitely there and everything. Part of the
Mhm.
reason that Samuel Jackson was there, and definitely good to see Serena Williams there, and a number of other references, including, like I said earlier, the Gil Scott Heron reference, because that
Yeah.
was a famous song and a song that I have always been a big fan of. The song that said the revolution will not be televised, and actually they were saying that this time the revolution will be televised, and we will be seeing people uprising and all along those lines. So it was good to see
Mhm.
that message being put out there. Some people wonder whether it was a street scene or a prison block scene. And of course, seeing the Bloods and the Crips united in that was something about gang unity. And there were some other things that were in the performance. So it was good to see all of this stuff out there and all along those lines. I did want to say just really quickly, because we are airing, I know, on your TikTok, and we're also airing on right now Instagram as well. So I want to give a big shout out to Real Life Works Thrift, which I believe is a thrift store based here in Raleigh, North Carolina, as well as the Real 99 Problems that have joined us on this conversation, and they want to join in and put in some comments. And it's the same said for your TikTok people. So if anybody is watching and wants to chime in with their thoughts, I know that both me and Dr. Anthony would love to hear your thoughts as to what you saw and what you enjoyed about what was going on. But definitely, it was a throwback to some of the 60s and 70s era protest type songs, and I definitely think that there are saying that some people said that right after the halftime show that the current person sitting in the White House left because he might have been a little bit upset, because there were definitely some not so subtle digs at him as well, and all along those lines. So it was not somebody that was going to pull some punches. I know some people, even with Not Like Us, wanted Kendrick to kind of do a soft down version, and that wasn't going to happen. That's not Kendrick's atmosphere. That's not Kendrick's attitude. So it was good to see this positive attitude and all along those lines. So if folks are watching, whether they're watching on Roku, or whether they're watching on podtv.tv, or whether they're watching on the social media outlets like Facebook,
Make sure y'all
Instagram, now,
tune into my show on podtv.tv
yep, tune in and build up those numbers
because
and everything
you
like
guys
that.
are actually watching the live on TikTok, and I'm actually on podtv.tv doing the live version over here. I'm sorry, I
Yep.
was talking to my TikTok followers and things like that. But no, you're absolutely correct, Mark, in terms of the symbolism and things like that or whatever, because he said that, y'all pick, what the wrong guy, the revolution is about to be televised and things like that or whatever. So I think he was the right person to, do the halftime show. Wrong. I love the Louisiana rappers. I love Louisiana culture. I love everything about Louisiana and things like that or whatever. Because some people were mad that Louisiana rappers were not invited to do the halftime show. And I think at this point, this particular show that Kendrick put on, it was above the Louisiana rappers, and he was at the right place at the right time, sending the right message and things like that or whatever, with everything that's going on inside of the United States, and how the world is watching these white folks turn their backs against us, and
Yep.
you know blame black people for pretty much any and everything and stuff like that or whatever. So I think Kendrick was the right person at the right moment at the right time. And I'm not taking anything away from either Louisiana artists, because I listen to Louisiana artists. I'm definitely from Louisiana, and I'm a Louisiana girl through and through. You know what I'm saying? And I support Louisiana artists, to the fullest. But I don't think this show was for them at this present point in time, in this moment. This was
And
all
those,
about Kendrick Lamar and his message and what he put out there.
and there was some Louisiana representation. I mean,
Percent and
John
from the
Baptiste.
with the 84%.
Yeah, but there was some
Yeah, and
Louisiana.
Lettucey was Louisiana, but I'm just talking about, they're talking about the whole, halftime performance or
Yeah,
whatever,
and
not
then
the
they,
beginning show.
no, and then they missed
But
that because Lettucey is Louisiana, John Baptiste is Louisiana,
yes,
if I remember correctly, and they did a great job and all along those lines. I did have a question for you, Dr. Anthony. Actually, two
yes,
questions, because there were two things that are always part of the Super Bowl, and some people are glad that this took part, and other people were not that pleased because of his own reputation and something like that. I think he might have even come out at one point and supported the man that is currently in the White House. But there was this other commercial that was aired that had featured Snoop, and it featured Snoop with Tom Brady, and it was one of those anti-hate commercials and all along those lines. So I just wanted your take on
oh,
that.
anyways, he's canceled. Nobody was listening to that. Snoop is like totally canceled. I mean, my thing is one thing to, like be down with the culture and call, mofos step and fetch and, job niggas and this, that, and the other. And you sitting there leading the charge, Snoop, about, you know, black men, who was going to be their job nigga, who you was going to talk about. And, you know, we've shown the video and things like that or whatever. So we just feel, as the black community, we just feel like it was a slap in the face for Snoop to even, you know, go and perform for this white man and for what he stands for and what he believes in. But, you know, it was a calculated move. And Snoop got to understand, this was a part, it was a calculated move on their part and things like that or whatever. He was just playing into, you know, something, you know, that he doesn't understand why black people turn back on him. So, you know, for him to, you know, in 2017, when Trump first got in office, to talk about, you know, how, you know, he was going to be the first one to talk about the step and fetch and, you know, talking about the job niggas and things like that. That was a slap in the face to, you know, Black America and things like that. That was a slap in the face to Black women. That was a slap in the face to the Black culture. So Snoop, he's totally canceled. Nelly is totally canceled. Young Boy, whoever, he's totally canceled. He was never in the picture anyway. But
Come on, I hear you.
Black dollars is what made him who he is today. It wasn't the white dollars. So you know, you sold your soul and you sold yourself for a few dollars just to say that you rubbed elbows with Trump and, you know, his supporters, and he wasn't even there. You know what I'm saying? The same thing with Michelle, when we begged her not to go and perform for Trump, and she's talking about she want to perform because she wants to unite the country. What country did you unite? We're divided. We're always going to be divided. But one thing that we can do is we together as the culture. We can stand together in unity as one, because we already know what we're fighting against. We're fighting against some Latinos. We're fighting against, you know, Palestinians. We're fighting against the white folks. We're fighting against all these other races. We're fighting against the Asians. But the one thing that we should not be doing is fighting against each other. You know what I'm saying? And we have to stand together. And what Snoop did, it was just a slap in the face in terms of what he did to the culture. Because when I tell you, I was beyond disappointed with form, Kelly, you know, you can listen to his words and his speech, and you can tell he's, you know, unintelligent and, you know, things like that or whatever, just based off of his speech. You know, he has to respect the office, but you're not respecting the people who got you to the point where you are. It was those black dollars that got you to that point. It wasn't nobody else. You know, when you was out there trying to get a kidney for your sister and the culture turned against you, you should have learned then. You know what I'm saying? That you were trying to get, you know, and this is Nelly.
Mm-hmm.
Sister, and nobody stepped up to help you save your sister. So this is another reason why people are not supporting you guys and things like that, because it was a slap in the face for the culture. You know, and when we say we're down for the culture, we're down for the culture because black dollars move in boardrooms. Y'all can say, you know, we can use Target as an example. Just last week, Target lost $15.7 billion alone from black people not supporting that company because, you know, initiatives and things like that or whatever. So people got to understand, you have to stand for something or you're gonna fall for anything. And like my mom and my grandmother always said, all money is not good money. So you sold your soul just to say that you performed at a White House ball and a White House party and things like that. You know, Snoop, Nelly, the other young man or whatever, for what? For what? Because it's the culture that is going to save you. It's the culture that is going to embrace you. Now you getting on social media, you playing gospel music. Nah, nigga, don't play gospel music now. You should have been playing gospel music when your ass was up there performing for Trump. You know, so now you have to deal with the repercussions of your actions. This is a consequence of your actions. So no, we're not trying to accept you back into the black community because it was a slap in our face that you went up there and you performed for that white man when you already know that this white man don't like black people. This white man don't respect black women. This white man does not have an ounce of in his body. And it's shown throughout his tactics and what he is doing today with bringing Elon Musk in, somebody who has not even been vetted by the Senate and things like that, who's giving him, you know, open access to our information and things like that. But Snoop, it was a Cheers, slap in the face, Mark.
Yeah.
Cheers, slap in the face.
Well, just really quickly, and I was going to bring up the other question that came up is that some people loved, and I know it's a concern of yours, just in terms of health and all along those lines. But before I get to that, I did want to say hello to Major K, who has joined us on Instagram, BJ Connections. And by the way, Major K gave you applause for that last remarks that you made, and all along those lines, as well as Arisha A Star, and I believe Arisha is a Clubhouse star, but they're here on
Thank you.
Instagram and everything. So we just like to give shout outs
Thank
to
you.
people as they join and all along those lines and everything. I know that we've talked before on the show, and one of the commercials, some people might have thought that it was a little bit too over the top because it definitely talked about the power that you women have, particularly with a certain body part and everything. But it was a commercial that showed the women mammary glands, the breast, and all along those lines. But it was really bringing awareness to something that is a significant issue in our community, which is breast cancer. But it did show several images, including from movies and other things, where the breast was the star and all along those lines. But it was really a commercial about breast cancer awareness, and that it is a issue throughout society. And I know that it's been an issue in some of your family as well. So I just wondering your take on that commercial, if you watched that commercial, and if you found it to be an effective commercial, because I did find it one of the more effective ones that was out there.
To be honest with you, I did not watch any of the commercials. Yeah, to be honest with you, I did not watch any of the commercials during the Super Bowl and things like that. I only watched the Kendrick Lamar performance because
Fair enough.
that's all I was interested in. Because I was actually supposed to be at Super Bowl, but my friends flaked out and things like that or whatever. So from here on out, I'm just gonna plan and I'm just gonna go and I'm not gonna wait on anybody to give me their word and let me know if they're participating and things like that or whatever. Because I should have been planning to go to since the summer because other people don't have their shit together.
You
But
agree?
in terms of women with breast cancer and things like that, yes, we did have a scare in my family or whatever with several cousins and also myself. Even when I went to go get a mammogram, was the mass found it was benign and things like that. And I ended up having a breast reduction. And I talked about this on like several shows or whatever. So me personally, I just like to tell young women, if you have the opportunity, already start getting your mammograms early. They typically say to wait till you get like 30 or 40, but I tell people don't do that because the earlier you find out, the better your chances of survival and getting the care and the help that you need. Luckily, I did have a mass in my right breast, which was making my right breast grow larger than my left breast. So I had to get a reduction on the right. Inadvertently caused me to get the reduction on the left because I would have looked really funny if I had to get both of them done or whatever. But had I not been persistent about my mammograms and my exams and things like that, I never would have known what was the reason that my breasts were growing at the rate that they were growing and things like that or whatever. So I tell people all the time, if you have the means and you have the the way to go ahead and get checked out, go to the doctor. That's what we're paying for. That's what we're paying the insurance for. Stop being a sourpuss when it comes to whatever. If I get a cold, I'm going to the doctor, which I pretty much already know what's wrong with me anyway because I know my body. But I'm still going to the doctor because I have paid for this insurance and I'm going to utilize the insurance. So getting those mammograms early is very key, is a key part of just healthy living, and not only for the women, also for men. Getting your getting checked, getting your prostate checked early.
Yep, exactly.
Things
That is an
we have
important
to learn
thing.
to start taking care of our bodies because for a long time, yeah, because for a long time, the medical world has not been great to Black people. It has been difficult for us in the medical field, and even now it's still difficult because they don't believe that we hurt the way that other folks hurt. They believe that our bodies are super bodies and things like that. For example, when what's his name, JFK Kennedy was saying that we vaccines as white people because our immune systems are stronger and things like that. That's not true. Our immune systems are, to be honest, I think our immune systems are more sensitive than their immune systems or whatever. But for them to make those notions, that we don't suffer the way that they suffer is, just asinine. And that is something that we've had to deal with in the Black community for a long time. Even Black women, we're still dealing with that at a high rate when we're giving other things. They don't listen to us. We get a lot of misdiagnoses. I know I got a misdiagnosis, going to the OBGYN. I had an OBGYN who was white at Howard University, because that's where I go to the OBGYN at. Got the care and the proper care that I need. So, they don't take the time that they need to take with us or whatever. So, I challenge all people to go to the doctor and, get those to make you're supposed to be doing. And if you don't have a Black doctor, find a Black doctor, because Black doctors understand Black issues.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just really quickly, it was fun. I know you weren't watching them and everything, but I'm not saying that I was a big fan of the show, but I did love the scene that was the fun scene and the joking scene from When Harry Met Sally. And that was another one of the commercials. There was a play on that, because I think whatever the product was, that was having them do that same fake situation that happened in the restaurant. That was the famous scene from When Harry Met Sally. So it was good to see a cultural scene recreated for a commercial and made me laugh and everything, because I do remember that scene when the woman faked the orgasm in the middle of the restaurant. So they used that as a part of one of the more effective commercials and all along those lines. But definitely that was just enjoyable. And a lot of people, speaking of coming back to the Super Bowl, were glad that for the first time ever, no matter who you were rooting for, and it does sound like you were rooting for Justin, this was the first time that we had two African American quarterbacks going up against each other and all along.
Sorry, Mark, you blanked out. I don't consider him African American. I don't consider him Black, because he supports Trump, and it's clear that his wife supports Trump and things like that or whatever. So again, they're not like us or whatever. So I never was rooting for him in the first place, because it's clear that there was clear indication that the referees have been cheating for him for a long time, and things like that or whatever. So it was never support on my side for him in the first place. Said I'm not an Eagles fan or whatever. I am a Saints fan, but in this instance, I was an Eagles fan. I was rooting for him hands down, because he deserved everything that he received. He deserved the fame, the notoriety. He deserved all of that. He deserved the MVP, because he did what he was supposed to do. He was on top of his game. He represented well, and he went out there. He showed up and he showed out. And he handled his business and
No,
things like that.
he definitely handled
Yeah.
his business and all along those lines. And some people are like you; they don't consider him that because of the mixed race and everything along those lines. But there were folks that were making this notion that they were the first time ever. I did have a friend of mine that was upset because they wanted Baltimore to be there, because then they said we would have had four African American quarterbacks in the playoffs instead of the way that it went and everything. Because unfortunately, Lamar did not make it, and I don't think Lamar made it and got voted out in terms of the most valuable player and all along those lines. So there were some people upset about that, but I do know some people, including a friend of mine, that wanted all four of them to be there. And unfortunately, that did not happen for those that wanted it and all along those lines. And now people are gearing toward college basketball. I know that my alma mater, who is coached by a brother, Shaka Smart, and all along those lines, did not do that well. We're in the middle of a 3-game losing streak. Hopefully we can kick that losing streak tomorrow evening, because I am tired of the losing streak. But we do have a good team, and we'll probably still get a good ranking in the big dance and all along those lines. But it was fun to hear that comment.
So Mark went out for a second. So he was saying that we had two Black quarterbacks. I don't consider the other one Black. Border, and he hadn't made any qualms about it. So yeah, like they say, all kin folks and all kin folks and our skin folks, all skin folks and our kin folks, or whatever the old adages and things like that or whatever. So I definitely don't consider him Black. He definitely takes up on the white side and things like that or whatever. But Jalen Hurts, congratulations to you on being named MVP, and you going out there handling your business and showing the world what you are actually about and things like that or whatever. your engagement, your beautiful black soon to be bride and soon to be wife and things like that or whatever. We support you and we commend you in your efforts and your stand up, behavior and things like that or whatever. So yes, we are definitely commending to you. So Mark, I don't know if we discussed the Grammys and things like that or whatever. They were clutching their pearls, when Beyonce won the album of the year for Cowboy Carter for country, like she doesn't deserve it. No, she absolutely deserves Cowboy Carter to be her album of the year and things like that. The sales were through the roof, the download was through the roof. She made history with the downloads. Her songs and things like that or whatever. She also put the spotlight on black cowboys and black country music singers and things like that or whatever. Their support went up to like over 100% as she was as she highlighted whatever Shabusi, Tanner Adele, and the other ones who performed with her and things like that or whatever. Her show was another show that was just immaculate and just spectacular. And quite naturally, the MAGA supporters were like, the show was horrible, just like they said about Kendrick's show, which Kendrick's show was amazing. That it was horrible. They didn't understand it. They couldn't understand what he was saying, and things like that or whatever. Baby, shows were not for you. This is strictly about black people business and things like that or whatever. It was not meant for you. Okay, so Cowboy, not like us, it was not meant for you. And we said not like us, you're not like us, and things like that or whatever. So we've been making strides all February and things like that, whatever, because it is Black History Month, and we have been
Yeah,
making
speaking of
strides.
Black
We
history,
cannot get any blacker, Mark, and I am so
you
happy
know, like I
about
said,
that.
I was a fan of Gil Scott Heron. Have been a good fan of Gil Scott Heron ever since my parents had their radio station back in the '70s and everything like that. Actually, I had the pleasure of meeting his daughter, Gia, I believe it is, during the Clubhouse era and everything during the pandemic, and might even have to see if we can get
Yes.
her on this show at some point and all along those lines, because I'm sure she was probably positively influenced by that as well, because I think she's in the West Coast just like Kendrick is, and of course we lost Gil Scott not that long ago, like maybe a couple of years ago and stuff like that. So that was very interesting. Like I said, going down to this conference that I was at in Miami was about media and everything. And I did meet some brothers, including a brother that has a Caribbean wrestling network and all along those lines. But apparently on February 1st, 1995, 30 years ago, two middle-aged African-American entrepreneurs bumped against a digital divide that separated black people from modern technology. They burst through spectacularly, and the divide was not merely black and white. It separated aware and ignorant, educated and poorly trained corporate and workers, and looked like we as a people were stuck in the bad side of that. So Ray O. Harris and Stafford L. Battle self-published a book entitled The African American Resource Guide to the Internet. This was perhaps the only publication focused primarily on the internet for black folks at that time and everything like that. But it does seem like we're still in the middle, and I know you're involved in this space in the world of internets and technology, where this internet divide is still happening in our society. I know we've got some black stars that are part of the you know influencers and stuff like that, but in terms of the digital divide, it is definitely out there. And apparently Stafford Battle is an Afro-futurist, and his published websites include staffordbattle.org and afrocyberspace.org, as well as sbattle.com. But as one in the education space, I was just wondering your thoughts on this digital divide, because we are still in the middle of a digital divide, and our people are not always doing as much as we probably should in the AI digital world. But you are in that space, so I just wanted your take on that.
Well, the digital divide has been going on since, like forever. And I don't think it's really necessarily about the AI. It's about getting people connected to the internet and things like that or whatever. And so we still have places in areas that still doesn't, have access to the internet specifically, whatever. So it's kind of hard to say, in terms of AI or whatever, because we do have people that are in Silicon Valley. We do have Black people that are in Silicon Valley. But when I think of digital divide, I think of people who are in rural areas, and those people who are having problems just connected to basic internet. and things like that or whatever, where they don't have fiber optics and where they can't get fiber optics. And some of those people are still using, like dial up and some people are, they still just don't even know about just basic things or whatever. So, when I think of the digital divide, I think of in terms of, just having basic access to the internet services and things like that, which can cause and limit, regular people in terms of, like being able to, like get access to the AI, invest in AI, learn about AI and things like that. So we root cause, and what's behind the root cause is just being able to access to, the internet just in general. And we just, we still have a lot of people just do not have access to the internet. So we have to address those issues before we can address the current ones that you're talking about, in AI space. We have to get people actually out there and, connected to the real world and connected to, having, fiber optics and high speed internet. We still have places that do not have high speed internet. So that's
No,
down
that's
the
very
road
true.
if we're talking about, having children who are exposed to, you know, anything with anything that comes with, AI and things like that or whatever. They're not going to have that exposure because they just don't have the internet. So we have
Yeah,
to address that first before we can go anywhere else.
no, that makes a lot of sense, by the way, because I know you are, as you said earlier, Louisiana through and all along those lines. So I know that you will be glad to know this, that apparently for the first time ever, and we're on Super Bowl, whatever number this is, but it's 50 something. So it's definitely been a number of Super Bowls out there and all along those lines. But for the first time ever, a young sister from your neck of the woods, actually from New Orleans, made history. So Taj Williams, a 26-year-old African woman from New Orleans, is making history. She was the first artist to design both the Super Bowl logo and its theme art. Her beadwork, which honors the Black masking tradition, highlighted the rich cultural traditions of New Orleans on a global stage. And apparently, she's a member of the Golden Eagles tribe, and she created a hand beaded design for Super Bowl 59. It looks like, inspired by the centuries-old Black masking tradition. The cultural practice involves intricate beadwork on suits worn during festivals like Mardi Gras, celebrating community and resilience. Themes reflected on her Super Bowl artwork. So the partnership is a dream come true and an opportunity to share the beauty of Black masking culture with the world, she said, according to an article published in Essence and everything. And she's got a personal connection to football, having been only girl and captain of her middle school football team. She said, football has played a tremendous role in my life by teaching me to focus on my dreams without worrying about what society thinks is for girls or boys. It's the same spirit of determination that shapes my work today. And speaking of that, and I don't know what your thoughts around this, so let's throw it out here and see what your thoughts are. But apparently there is a movement, they mentioned it during the Super Bowl game and everything, to have all 50 states have flag football in the high school system. So not just the boys will be playing football, but the girls will be playing college girls football or flag football, and it is an initiative that is being put out there by the NFL. So they want the girls to enjoy some of the fun of football as well, but I guess they don't want the hard hit, so they're going to do the flag football. But it is an initiative to get it in every high school in all 50 states and everything. So what's your take on this notion of you ladies playing football? It's going to be flag football and it being in every school around the country.
Well, I mean, whatever they want to do is whatever they want to do. I know I'm not playing flag football. I'm not playing tackle football. I'm not playing touch football. I'm not doing any of that. But you do have some young ladies who are interested in playing football. And my thing is to those young women, more power to you. Whatever. But as far as it being a sport in all of the 50 states, if that's what the children desire, then I'm all for it. But if the children are not desiring that or whatever, then we shouldn't push that agenda. We should actually have conversations with the children and see, hey, is this something that you guys will be interested in participating in, or whatever, instead of just forcing things down the children's neck or whatever, because I remember once when I and we straight up told them we wasn't wearing no uniforms. We don't care what y'all do. We never wear no uniforms. And they left that notion alone. But after, we graduated and like 10 years down the road, they implemented uniforms in public schools or whatever. So my thing is just ask the kids, is this something that you want or whatever? Is this something that you want to participate in? You know, because like I said, I'm not doing it. So, you know, hey, if the kids want it, then, you know, I'll support it. But if, you know, they don't, then, you know, we need to listen and we need to take account to, you know, things that they participate in, you know. Mark. You're on mute, Mark. There you go. I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Mark. I'm sorry. So Mark is on mute and we can't hear him and things like that or whatever. But you know, like I said, if this is something that the children want, they want flag football in, you know, all the schools and make this an opportunity that both, you know, young men and young ladies can participate in, you know, hey, I'm all for it, you know, whatever make your boat float. But like I said, as far as me and I'm concerned, you know, I'm not into it or whatever. But you know, if excuse me, that they want to do, then you know they are more than welcome to, you know, participate in it and things like that or whatever. This is something that I just feel, you know, that we should, you know, bring to the children and let's, you know, let's do a survey. Let's ask the kids instead of, you know, just making assumption and making, you know, decisions without having their input and things like that or whatever. This is something that I hadn't heard of in the high school situation. Although I, you know, teach high school and I used to be an AD in the middle school. AD is the athletic director. Like I said, let's ask the children. If the children are, you know, okay with it, then you know I'm good with it as well. Mark,
The computer. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me
yes,
now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, I
Yes,
get just something was going on with the computer and everything. I know you're not a big fan of the Kansas City Chiefs, but I do have another question based on one of the other things that you talk about, which is this whole notion of interracial relationships and everything. Because apparently Saquon Barkley's fiance Annie Congdon got under fire before the game because
I made a comment on her.
you did. Okay, I did not hear that and everything. But what is our thoughts around that? And maybe you want to get some further clarification because apparently you got into a bunch of
Well,
noise.
my thing is, you know, my thing is with them and them white women, you know, they love black men and they want that black, you know, whatever. You know, but their racism always has a way of peeking out and stuff like that. And she had, you know, made derogatory terms and derogatory marks before she became his, you know, fiance and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever you
Apparently she.
like, do whatever makes your boat float. That's whatever make your boat float because that's what you like. That's what y'all want and things like that. Then you know when they marry them and get taken to bank and lose half their money, then they want to come back to the black community and things like that and want black women to say, "Well, no, keep your ass over there." You know what I'm saying? Go ahead, and stay your ass on that side. That's what you do.
Well, apparently she was involved in some of the cultural things in our community because apparently it's part of the controversy was that she was involved in an online conversation, including one where she participated in a hashtag game, writing "replace a Disney movie with Nah, the Cheetah Nah." And in another incident, she quoted Kanye West 2005 hit "Gold Digger," responding to a post with "She ain't messing with no broke that N word." And she later repeated a similar line from the song, further fueling criticism. In yet another post, she wrote, "I thoroughly enjoyed calling my mom that N word," and everything like that. So apparently she's trying to co-op and do cultural appropriation. Because one of the things that went on this weekend is a friend of mine had gone up to Memphis and they had gone up to
Mhm.
a blues competition and they were actually frustrated because in this blues competition there were white folks that were imitating black voices in order to sing in the blues idiom and be part of the blues competition, and they didn't know how to mic African drums, even though African drums, like with Taj Mahal and others, is part of the blues and the blues culture. But even the gentleman that was doing the blues production and was doing the contest did not know how to mic those particular kinds of mics. He just knew how to mic the standard drums and snare drums. So I just wanted your thoughts maybe around cultural appropriation because we're still seeing it being very active in society. We even saw sometimes that president tried to borrow some of the things from our
Well, the thing
society.
about cultural appropriation, Mark,
Mhm.
they
Yes.
don't borrow anything, they steal and they take. You know what I'm saying? Just like, for example, country music. Country
Mhm.
music was started by black artists and things like that, but they have stolen it and whitewashed it throughout the years that they think that they have white people thinking that this was something that they started, which is clearly not. We've always had black cowboys. We've always had black country music and things like that or whatever. So they always appropriate the culture. They always steal ideas. They always steal our dance. The white people were getting paid, significant amount of money more than the black creators, and the white people were stealing their stuff. That's why they had to come up with ways to protect their content, protect their dance move, because the white people would study their dance move, do their dance moves, and get paid way more than the black people who actually created it. So there's nothing new about the cultural appropriation and things like that. But they want to always say, they want to gatekeep their spaces and things like that. That is not your space. We started it. Y'all stole it. Y'all whitewash.
But
Whatever.
Dr.
So
Anthony,
it's just real interesting. Yes.
but I was going to say it's
I'm
interesting you
sorry.
said
Go
that.
ahead.
'Cause it's interesting you say that because yesterday there was a young lady that was having a birthday party here at the cultural center for her 2-year-old, and there was an older gentleman, probably a little bit older than me, so it might have been late 60s or early 70s, but he was talking about the nature of how this society was built, and he did give the Chinese some credit for the railroads and everything like that, and he did give, of course, the migrants some credit for some of the farms, and of course, what we did in terms of the major farmland and everything. But he actually brought up something that you just brought up, which is the notion of cowboys, because originally in American history, white cowboys, if you watch some of the old TV shows, you will see that they were called cowhands, while the black cowhands were the ones that were called cowboys because of the whole notion of boys and everything.
Correct.
So contrary to the homogeneous imagery depicted by Hollywood and history books, cowboys of color had a substantial presence on the Western front, and we know that even from some of the movies like Posse and everything like that. But the black cowboys faced discrimination economically and socially, similar to the rest of the country. And in old Western movies, heroes often wore white hats and villains wore black hats, with white associated with righteousness and black with wickedness. But the notion of cowboys, which people like to talk about, even some of those people in the West, in the Western part of the country, is actually rooted in, as you were just saying, black history. In American history, like I said earlier, white cowboys were called cowhands and the black cowhands were called cowboys. And that whole term of derogatory term boy was used because they were African American and all along those lines. So people need to understand that part of the history, and even in the race car, because I know that this is a week, not just as a Super Bowl.
Well, not even just that,
I'm just going to add really quickly, and then I'll let you go and finish
that
your
Mark,
story.
Know what I was gonna say? Not even just that, even the Lone Ranger, the whitewash the Lone Ranger. The Lone Ranger was actually black. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
exactly.
Even Stagecoach Mary.
Yeah,
Stagecoach Mary was actually a black woman who delivered the
right.
mail, not a white woman. So, the TV shows has always whitewashed everything. And people who, those are the ones who are, left, out in La La Land, even when, we can really back into the Super Bowl when Kendrick was on there with the imagery and things like that, giving us a historical lesson and teaching, about, things that we're going on, that's happening today and that's going on right now or whatever. People talking about his show was boring. You know what I'm saying? The show was not meant for you, sweetheart. You would have been one of the ones that Harriet Tubman had to kill and leave behind, because your ass would have went back telling Massa, they escaped. You have to understand, you not like us or whatever. So the message was not for you. You know what I'm saying? Because like they say, all skin folk ain't kinfolk and things like that or whatever. So you missed the message. That's why it was boring to you, but it wasn't boring to us. The ones who got it, and the ones who understood. You know what I'm saying? So, without that knowledge base of, black history, black American history or whatever, a lot of people are lost, and a lot of people don't understand, when you have artistry like Beyonce that's coming through history about her songs and things like that. Kendrick Lamar, who is teaching history and teaching symmetry and, about starting the revolution and things like that through his work and his songs and things
Right.
like that or whatever. So people just got to understand, you need to go back and read. You need to enlighten yourself so that you can understand your own history. So you can stop being out there, trying to put mayonnaise on it and whitewash it with these white folks. Go ahead, Mark.
No, I was just going to say, because the other thing that's getting ready to happen is not always in our society and everything like that. But in celebration, because in the other thing that's going on in society this week in the month of February, in addition to Black History Month, is NASCAR, and there are several major races that are going to take place. And in celebration of Black excellence during Black History Month, NASCAR has unveiled a three-part docuseries called The Brotherhood of NASCAR, highlighting the stories of 5 African-American pit crew members from Chip Ganassi Racing, and it focuses on their relationship on and off the racetrack. The first of 3 episodes was released on NASCAR's YouTube channel and highlights their preparation leading into the 2021 Daytona 500. But it is looks like a majority or a 5-member pit crew members: Mike Madcliffe, Jeremy Kimbrough, Kenyatta Cap Houston, Jonathan Tig Willard, and Marshall McFadden, each on taking on various roles for this particular racing group and everything. But as they said, the work will never be over as NASCAR continues to make strides with diversity, fighting social injustice, and ensuring an inclusive culture for all. The Brotherhood series provides a behind-the-scenes series look into the lives of those who have paved the way and everything like that. So it definitely looks like it is a thing that has in the past been a majority white institution, even though a lot of the brothers that were doing liquor running were part of the early days, like Wendell Scott, I believe was his name, and some other folks like that. But it is still a part of society that has got much work to do, but we are seeing some inroads, and hopefully they'll see some more continuing inroads to that particular line of field. Because even in the series, they talk that there are the tire changers for change, and that there is some need to see some greater representation, just like there's a need to see greater representation in the horse race field as well. So definitely says, even one of the brothers says he knows the struggle for African American men and women are real. He has experienced them. People can look at me and be like, that wouldn't happen to you because you're this type of person. You carry yourself this way. You made a life use, and said, I have to tell them, you don't know what I've been through. You don't know what I've done in my life to get where I am right now. So he is in his 16th NASCAR season, serving as a tire changer on one of the top racing cars and everything like that. So just wanted your take on some of these folks that are sometimes even coming from the world of football, because it looked like one of them came from Appalachian State and another came from Clemson, but they are trying to make a difference in a sport that in the past has been very whitey white.
Well, that's one of that I was about to say that's one of those sports that has continued to be white washed and white owned and things like that or whatever. And they have consistently tried to keep us out, even with Bubba Wallace and things like that or whatever, the NASCAR driver and stuff like that. But like I said, they're always trying to keep us out of venues and areas that they feel that we don't deserve to be in. Just like with Dawn Staley, she doesn't deserve it. What she doesn't deserve. This woman built her program from the ground up all the way. And I know we're talking about the NASCAR, but I'm just using it as an example. They feel like we don't deserve to be where we are. You know what I'm saying? So what do they not deserve about it? They have to start from the ground up. They have to make $1 out of 50 cents. They have to pull blood from a turnip and things like that or whatever. So what is it that we don't deserve that you feel like y'all can gatekeep and y'all can just keep everything over there and things like that or whatever? So we still have a long road to go, and we still have to continue to fight because we're still having a lot of firsts and things like that or whatever. So it's just heart-wrenching or whatever for people to just hate you for existing because of the color of your skin, because you look different from them, because you act different from them and things like that or whatever.
No, that's no doubt. It's very heart wrenching and everything like that. And then you got people that are still trying to not make America great again, but make America white again and everything. Because one of the things that our current president did, and he just announced this recently, is he wants to give, because he says that they are being discriminated against, kind of like favorite nation status to the immigrants that are coming over from South Africa. So I think he announced that last week, that he is interested in having these people from South Africa come over because his good buddy Elon is from South Africa, and he's heard through the grapevine that South African, particularly white South Africans, are being discriminated against. And ironically, some of them were like, nah, that's okay, thanks, but no thanks, because I don't think that they necessarily want to come here, despite him wanting them to come here. And they were basically like, thanks, but we'll pass. They did not want to join the madness and all along those lines. But I didn't know if you had any thoughts around that as well, because I did see that in a recent article where they were basically like, "No, that's all right. We're good. We don't have to come over just because you want us to come over."
Well, I mean, it's all about, like I said, it's all about the white South Africans and things like that or whatever, because, clearly they're white and, they own most of the land that's in South Africa. They own 70% of the land, the stolen land or whatever.
Mm.
For him to, make it easy for them to come over because they're white people, it's no surprise there. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? So, his actions has always spoken for him and things like that. His racism is clear. That's why I don't understand what black person in their black ass mind would ever support a person like this. Any minority, to be honest with you. Because it's really funny, Mark. I've been seeing on, social media about even the white folks talking about they regretted their voting for Trump and things. Well, you voted for him. This is what you wanted, and y'all mad women said that we were going to take a step back and things like that because we're not fighting your battles no more. So y'all still mad. So
Yes.
my thing is, it's no surprise with what this man is doing and what he wants to do.
Not surprising to me, but
Clearly.
maybe if you kiss the ring, you get some benefit and everything. Because as we were talking and winding down this show, I just happened to look up at my news feed and it sees, and I know that he met with the current president and everything. But the Justice Department has instructed federal prosecutors in the Southern District of New York to drop the bribery cases against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. And we do know that Eric Adams, just like Trump, has had some issues and everything. And I do know he went down there and apparently kissed the ring of Trump and maybe said he was going to do this or that with the deportation. And because of that, they are now saying that the Justice Department has instructed the prosecutors to drop the case. And I thought that at one time they said they had an airtight case, but now that he's kissed the ring, I guess he's gotten off because of having kissed the ring and all along those lines. But I don't know if you got any thoughts around that, because I just happened to look up into my news feed and there's basically like, they were going after him hard. Then he went and met with Trump and now they're not going to go after him. That sounds like a kiss the ring moment to me.
Like I said, oh, of course, like I said, all these, sellouts and, things like that or whatever, like Cat Williams say, whatever's done in the dark is going to come to the light and things like that or whatever. So it's just a matter of time before all this foolishness comes to the light and things like that. So, you sold your soul, you sold yourself, you done some things or whatever, but in due time, it will come to the light. In due time, Trump will get prosecuted. In due time, do is, deal with this for another couple of years and things like that or whatever, because in 2 years we have to vote for Congress and Senate again and things like that or whatever. So that's our time, get Democrats in the office and put an end to all this foolishness and things like that and hold these white folks accountable for this foolishness.
Yeah, we can't just hold the white folks. We also got to hold some of our people to foolish.
Well, I'm not saying I'm not negating that, but our people are not leading the Congress. Our people are not leading the Senate. I'm talking about the movers and the shakers that are law.
No, I got what you were saying.
I'm talking about these lowball people who are, just out there running their mouths and things like that.
Well, I want to hear your thoughts about
we're going to hold them accountable as well. But I'm talking about the movers and the shakers, the actual power makers.
No, I knew what you meant. I knew what you meant.
Put laws into place and things like that or whatever.
No, but as we get ready to get out of here and everything, I didn't know if you had any last minute thoughts, because the other one that I saw that just literally came across my desk and it was from a few hours ago and everything. But apparently thanking Elon Musk for allowing him to vent Kanye West quit X after a quote unquote anti-Semitic rant and everything. So apparently he
honestly,
was.
I don't care what Kanye does. I say honestly, I don't care what Kanye does, because he was all up Trump ass in the last election and things like that or whatever. So he's another one that's just, like way out there for me and things like that. I don't listen to his music. I don't respect anything that he says and anything that he does. Whatever goes on with him is whatever goes on with him. And that's just the bottom line. But, the clock on the wall says that's all, Mark. So, we definitely have to get out of here. And we on TikTok and your Instagram on the next taping of the show. So if you guys want to join in, you have questions, comments, please make sure you respond, but also make sure you click like and share. And with that being said, we're gonna take it on up out of here, Mark.
We're going to get on out of here. What I was going to tell Dr. Anthony is that when I went to Miami, I actually had the pleasure of meeting the leaders of Amazon and the leaders of Roku. So hopefully, because I just got an email from one of them, we'll be seeing them help us get some of these top rankings. But I did meet some of the actual leaders. The head of content, which actually creates a lot of the material for Roku, was one of the guys that I met. And then I did meet the lady that's in charge of Amazon. So hopefully I can help them get this show, as well as some of our other shows, up in the charts, not just in the Pod TV charts, charts, but in the charts of Roku as well. So it was definitely a pleasure meeting them. And I had an email from one of them earlier today where he wrote me back after I wrote him saying how much I enjoyed it and how much we give them a shout out, meaning that we are proud to be part of the Roku network and would love them to help us get even higher and all along those lines. So it was a pleasure meeting David Allenberg as well as Kelly. I think her last name was Day, and everything that was the leader of Amazon as well as some of the leaders.
Nice. So I look
something like that. So on that note,
I look forward to working with them, and I look forward to, bringing our show to Roku and Amazon and, getting it out there. I mean, because we're already, worldwide and things like that, but bringing it closer to home and, on these local platforms. So I am excited about that and looking forward to moving forward. And with that being said, Mark, take us on out.
We get on out of here.
What's up? Welcome to the All Around. I'm your gracious host, Dr. Anthony. Please tune in on Mondays at 6 p.m. for your entertainment purposes. We will hit current topics, old topics, and everything else in between. Be there or be square. Deuces, my loves.